Hello everyone, Kenty Tiger here with Bengali Engineering and Play. We are back in Space Engineers. Today our tutorial topic is projectors. Now projectors are kind of an interesting little beast. They can be used for an awful lot of things. Building, especially if you're trying to mass produce something. We will get into the mock-up that you see in front of us here, but projectors are a very flexible, useful device. They also have some interesting quirks that are a little difficult to overcome. There are things that don't always make a lot of sense. One of the things that I have seen projectors used for, which I have in my own experience found to be the most problematic, is I want to call it self-repairing ships. Which is really to say you have a ship that has a projector with a blueprint of itself, and when blocks are damaged, destroyed, that sort of thing, then it is intended to project the blueprint where those blocks are missing, and then it's really just a simple matter of, oh well, this is needing welding up, so I think I'll weld this up. So I've had some trouble with that, and it's probably just a matter of technique and figuring out how to make it work as it's supposed to work, but we'll have to do some more discovery. So the moral of the story is that even people who try to teach also have some times when they need to learn. So this tutorial is a basic tutorial. The concept here is to try and understand how projectors work, some of their various functions. So this mock-up is just to make some of this demonstration a little easier to see. All of these functions are literally built into the projector. We're going to kind of put those functions, the functionality, out onto, you see all these button bars here. We're going to move some of that functionality out to the button bars, and the reason for that is we want to actually be able to see what some of these functions are actually doing. So there are 6 main functions, and I know you're thinking, well, if there's only 6, why do you have this bazillion buttons here? Because each of those 6 functions actually has a forward and a reverse. Not necessarily called a forward and reverse, but is a forward and reverse, or an additive and a subtractive, whichever way you want to look at that. So if you didn't notice here, you see a projection of the mining drone that we built in some of the previous episodes. So you also notice that that's kind of sitting up on end, which is really not intentional, but it's actually really great for demonstration. So what do we have here? Well, we have the projector, which you can see is on the end of that little arm. What the heck is that battery doing there, and that connector? Well, one of the dare I say limitations of a projector is that a projector can only be for the size of the grid in which it's intended for use. What does all that mean? I have to use a small projector if I'm building a small ship. I have to use a large projector if I'm building a large station or a large ship. Okay, I don't have any way around that. So what is this doing here? Well, I have a small connector connecting me onto the big grid. So the grid at the bottom there, the kind of landing pad thing, is a large grid, and I needed some way to connect on a small projector, and this is one of the ways to do that. There's actually quite a few different ways, such as a small head onto a large rotor. That also works. So this to me is the most simple, the most flexible, because I can just disconnect this coupler and this connector and haul away this particular thing and put on a large projector if I really wanted to. So a couple of things we have to do is get this projector oriented the way we want it, which is basically already done. And I apologize that I mocked this up ahead of time. It just saves a little time as far as the video goes. So really the orientation portion of this is going to be figuring out how do we get that projection, the thing that we're going to build off of, put into a correct position that we can work with it. And we'll go into some details on how we do that. So let's get familiar with the projector here. So I'm going to zoom up here, and obviously we're going to take a lot of this out of the zoom, out of the view. So K, I'm using this port here as my control block. I can also use the control blocks on the button bars. But because we're just looking at the projector, so here's what this looks like. This is completely connected in. Let's go ahead and just because we'll rename that. What I'm going to do here is a Control A, which will highlight. Control A, which will highlight everything. I'm going to change this to me for the sake of expedience at this point. Obviously, the connectors will not connect unless the owner is the same, or the share with my faction. So if somebody else owns it but is sharing something with the faction, then they would also connect. So it's not just an ownership thing, but with that share with my faction. So anybody who is part of my faction will be able to couple their ship, even if it's owned by them, onto this particular coupler. So in this case, connector. So sorry, connector, coupler, all the same thing to me. Yep, let's go into the projector and learn a bit about that, and then I will babble possibly at length on some of the other stuff. Now we're not going to worry about all this gibberish on the side yet. You see type projector, max input required 100 watts, warning projector, projection out of the bounds, blah blah blah. We'll get into that. What I really wanted you to see here is this horizontal offset, vertical offset, forward offset, pitch, yaw, and roll. So remember I talked about these 6 settings that are both plus and minus, additive and subtractive. So this is actually 12 different functions. 6 functions with a plus and a minus. Okay, so effectively what I need to do if I'm going to put all this stuff on the bar, on a button bar, is I have to have the horizontal offset plus and minus, the vertical offset plus and minus, and forward offset plus and minus. So in the button bars that you see here, I've got 2 on each side, and we'll back out of this just to let you see that again. 2 on each side, which is 8 buttons. I need 6 buttons for each set. Okay, so in this case it's the offset and then the angular deviation, okay, which are those bottom ones, pitch, yaw, and roll. So pitch, how to explain, because this this changes a little bit. So let's imagine these as a rotational axis. Pitch is forward and aft deviation. Okay, so in other words, as forward goes up, my bow goes up, the stern goes down. Okay, pitch. So forward and aft angular deviation. Yaw. Yaw is the z-axis center. Okay, so this is, if we imagine our ship sitting flat like it's supposed to, this is spin around the axis in the center. What is roll? Well, roll is just like you're on a ship at sea. Do you roll back and forth from port to starboard? That's rolling. Okay, so pitch, yaw, and roll. A little bit hard to understand. So pitch. Let's translate. Most people have flown in some kind of simulator. So imagine the control stick. Pitch is pushing the stick forward or pulling it back towards you. Okay, pitch. Yaw is your rudders. Okay, so you are literally it's flat, but you are shifting it from side to side around that z-axis. Roll is taking that stick and moving it to the left side or the right side. Okay, so putting that in different terms. Okay, horizontal offset, what is that? Okay, vertical offset, what is that? Forward offset, what is that? All of those are relative to the projector position. Okay, and knowing how to put a projector, to actually mount a projector, can be a little bit of a challenge. So horizontal, what is that? Well, that's kind of your up and down, right? Supposed to be. Or side to side. Maybe that's side to side. Sorry. We'll find that out. So horizontal, right? On a flat line, so that is side to side. Sorry. Vertical, up and down. So that's going to change the position of the projection up or down. Forward offset is forward and backwards. Okay? So a little bit hard to understand, and those again are relative to the positioning, which is really to say the orbit of the projector. So if you mount the projector and you spin it, and the side that's supposed to be the top is actually pointing aft, then these are going to be a little bit wonky. So you just have to pay attention to how you place your projector, and we'll try and get into that. I can't really zoom in on anything. Haven't really learned how to do video stuff quite that well yet. So what we're going to do here is take these functions, okay, these 6 functions and both sides of those 6 functions, and put them on the button bars. Okay, that way it'll make it just a little easier to use. All right, so how do we do that? Well, let's come over here to the button bars. I'm going to go ahead and K again, and so this happens to be button panel 1, and what do I want to do with that particular button panel? Well, I'm going to set up actions. Okay, simple, set up actions. All right, now aside from all these guys being out here, this is really the one we want. This is our projector. I've already named it Projector Platform Small and Projector. Okay, so if you saw that other, the control panel screen, you saw that there were 3 things: the battery, the projector itself, and the connector. So that's so here's this one and this one. Okay, so all I've done is used a convention so I can identify that that's actually the projection platform, and it's the small one, just in case I ever need to build another one. But this is actually what we need. So if I take this and I drag this down, so that was a left click and a drag, I'm going to drop it in button 1, and I'm going to get all kinds of stuff on the screen. So in this case, we're dealing with the offsets, and you can see here increase and decrease, right? So just because I tend to do things mathematically correct, we're going to put the minus here and the plus here. So this was horizontal, so decrease and increase. We're going to do the same thing with the vertical. Okay, so we're going to decrease and increase. Okay, why did I do it decrease and increase? Just, it makes sense in my head. If this makes better sense to you to do increase and decrease, which to me is backwards, that's fine. Knock yourself out. So set it up how you feel it is appropriate. Alright, so that was button 1. We're going to get into button 2. We're going to do the same thing. Set up actions, which is this big button here. We're still dragging and dropping stuff. Remember, we got the horizontal, the vertical, and now we need the forward. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing. Decrease and increase. Increase here. Forward offset. Alright, so reviewing. Decrease forward, increase forward. Okay, so move it one way, move it the other way. Alright, escape gets you back out to our main menu. Let's review button panel 1. Okay, so we have decrease horizontal offset. Button 2 is increase horizontal offset. Decrease vertical offset. Increase vertical offset. Okay, so we have minus and plus, and again minus and plus, which we already reviewed. Alright, escape again. We're going into button panel number 3. and we're doing the same thing, except now we're doing this angular deviation. Okay, so increase and decrease pitch, decrease, increase, pitch, decrease yaw, increase yaw, which is right there. Let's review while we're here. Decrease pitch, increase pitch, decrease yaw, and increase yaw. Okay, so those are our 4 buttons there. Going to button panel 4, which is the furthest one to the right, the way we're positioned right now. Set up actions once again. Take our projector, drag it onto button 1, and the last one here is roll. So decrease roll and increase roll. Alright, so for just a moment we're going to select the projector and turn it off. Okay, and the reason I did that was because I want to actually, we're going to get close, we're going to zoom in on it and actually have a look at it. Okay, so the first thing I want you to do, I know it's a bit hard to see here, but on my toolbar here, the number 2 slot has a projector on it. And what you see is this little crisscross pattern that's on the top, and where you see the one coming in from the bottom and the one coming in from the top, which is the front. Okay, and it doesn't actually say that anywhere, and some of your builds, when you try and put them on the projector, are going to come up a little bit strange, and this is exactly what we're seeing here with the drone miner. It is basically facing up, even though this projector is put in apparently the correct way. So to review, we'll get a little closer. You see this crisscross pattern here that's on the top, just like you see it on the diagram there, and this up and down is there. So let's, just for fun, come down here. You can see that the bottom does not have that pattern, and the sides do not have that pattern. Okay, so only thing, let me go ahead and pull one of these up. So here you see it in the same orientation. What I'm going to do is just spin this around so you can see that the back side is the same thing. It's blank. It does not have the crisscross pattern. So alright, so 0 to get that off the screen. So according to the icon, which is to say how it looks on the button bar, as well as if you actually look this up on the wiki, you're going to see it in the same orientation here. So theoretically, this quad thing is the top, and this dual thing, the up and down, is the front. Now, I don't know if that's really true or not. I've seen different projections do different things. So for the sake of this is why you put all those buttons out there, because then you can adjust accordingly. Alright, so let's come back in here, and you can do this on any control panel. Highlight whatever control panel you want to use. I'm using a port. Come back in here, projector, and we're going to turn our projector on. And again, you get all this gibberish. Projection out of bounds. What does that typically mean? That means that the projection itself is not somewhere that is actually touching the build. Okay, and where that becomes a problem is that a projector has to have a starting point. Okay, it has to have something where it can actually begin, so that one highlighted block that you can actually weld. Okay, you can't just weld anywhere. The very first block on the projector has to be able to weld something. So the something has to be touching that projector. Now keep that in mind. We're going to do a little bit of funky stuff getting to that point, and it will all make sense. It's going to be like, okay, you're totally full of horse crap, but just bear with me. You'll see it all works out. Alright, so out of this, and we're going to start using our little buttons here. So what we can see is that our side to side is actually perfect. It's right where it needs to be. We got to figure out which axis that is, but all right. So decrease pitch. Okay, we just rotated it around. So we increase pitch again, and yep, so went back to there. There we go. Okay, that was really the one I wanted. So I wanted to change the orientation to this. My intention is to connect the projector on to, if you see this bottom thruster here, this aftmost bottom thruster. And before I say bottom, let me just make sure that we are actually talking about the bottom. Okay, so if we see the projection here of the camera with the word camera right side up, so that is indeed up here is the top, down here is the bottom. All right. So right now we are mostly in the angular orientation that I want. So I only had to change that one. So why do we put it on the button bars? Well, it makes it really easy for you to completely orient your projection to the projector and do exactly what you want it to do. So in this case, what we've done is literally move this thing around a bit. We did one change in angles, and that happened to be the yaw. So we decreased the yaw by 1. So just for fun, let's go ahead and do a K on our control panel. We're going to select our projector, which will bring up the information for the projector right here in the middle. Okay, and what do we notice here? Well, the first thing we notice is my warning about the projection being out is gone. Think about that. All right, what's the build status? This build has 127 blocks. Okay, so that's what this number means. Build progress. Well, how many of those blocks are complete? That's what this means. Build progress. All right, so let's roll down here. Remember we talked about yaw. You're going to see that yaw is no longer 0. Okay, so we went to a -90 on the yaw, and that put it exactly where we wanted it as far as the angles, so we don't have to touch, pitch, or roll. Okay, so let's focus on the offsets. We'll start with horizontal. We think horizontal is already correct because it was already centered. So I'm going to start with vertical, and I'm going to go up and see what happens. So let's look at that. We're going to go over to this side. I'm going to try and get at an angle here where I can actually see what's going on. That's a decrease, and this is an increase. So let's see. Okay, increase now is going down, which again, a little bit wonky. Don't know why it does that, but this is why we put it on the button. So here we go. T. One more. All right. So right now you see that the projector is in the same position as that thruster. So in this case, we want to do the forward aft, figure out what it is. I'm going to presume that because the vertical was backwards, that forward and backwards is also going to be. And unfortunately, I can no longer see what I'm doing. So there's a T, and that went forward, which was the opposite direction as I wanted it to go. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm pressing T. All right. So if you see here that we have the projection, and we have these two dark projectors. Okay, these two dark blocks. What does the dark block versus the light block mean? The dark block is weldable. Okay, so that's the goal. That's where we wanted to get to. So, having said that, what I'm going to do is one more forward, and you're going to ask yourself, why the heck is he doing this? Because it's where it needs to be. And I'll tell you why in just a second. Alright, so let's go back over here. We're gonna do the increase and press it one more time, and you'll see that just went out of bounds again. I have no dark blocks. Did I really want to do that? And the answer is yes, I do. So let me do a control 1, which puts me back to my number 1 bar. I'm going to do a light armor block, which you see over there in the corner. I'm going to put it right here on the front of the projector. Now, why the heck would I do something? Watch what happens. So, here's what we did. We put this block in here, which is connected onto the projector. And all of a sudden, those 2 dark blocks, those 2 thrusters, just showed up again. What did we really do? We're away from the projector, but the projector sets everything up to weld. Everything that can weld has to be touching the projector or touching a block that's touching the projector. Okay, so as you can see here, not quite as crazy as you thought there for a second. So what we have done is create a way, here's the other catch, a projector is connected. Okay, so on that slope block where you see the reticle there, the projector is connected to that. It's there. Okay, so just like the mount points of all these blocks, if you get into the guts and gore of how Space Engineers works, when you actually stick a block next to another, it connects it on, right? Okay, this projector is connected onto that slope. Likewise, that block I just made, that solid block, is connected on the other side. If I weld those 2 thrusters, then those thrusters are connected onto this block. Now, what do I want to do? Why is that important? When I disconnect this ship that we're going to weld up here from the rest of it, how can I do that easily? That's what this block that I just put in here is really all about. I grind that block down, and because I'm no longer connected on, the ship is now free to move independently. Okay? So what I want to do when I use a projector, when I take whatever blueprint that I want to do something like this, so I can grind something down that's not critical, that's not part of the original ship, and certainly not my projector, so I can free up the ship. Okay, so that's what this block is really all about. It's a grindable piece that I can get rid of that will then disconnect what I'm trying to weld up from this stationary projector. Okay, so that's what that block was really all about. Now, one of the things you saw when we kind of went into the control panel here was all these welders. Now, these welders are a mod. They're called twin welders. The guy who did that, I don't know that I'll specifically list them, because normally I let everybody's going to choose their own mods. So the fact that I like the twins, there's a twin welder and a twin grinder. Why do I like them? Because welders and grinders are based on a spherical model that is around the front of that unit, and that spherical model really is about what is the grinding or welding radius of this particular device. In the case of the twin welder and grinder, they actually have about a 5-block radius. So what I wanted to do is have something that would be large enough so I could weld this up by welders within the context of our mock-up here. So this is automatic welding. And I don't know that this will work. I haven't tried it yet. But theoretically, our welder array down there should weld up our entire little ship here, which is exactly what projectors are all about. what I think I'm going to do here is put the welders into a group, which I have not yet done. So let's come over here. We'll do the control panel and press K, kilo, and here's all our welders. All right, so we're just going to call those welders. No irony there at all. And because we don't really need those to show up on our screen, we're going to go ahead and turn the toolbar config off and the terminal. Now there may be in the future a reason to have the inventory if I want to pull inventory out of there for some reason. Right now, let me take a step back. We'll tell you a little more about this mock-up. So it is a 10 by 10. Let me go up and zoom out here. Stop the video here if you want to count, but it's a 10 by 10. Grid in the center there, the yellow, the tiger orange there, surrounded by a just a simple grid of black blocks. Okay, light armor. Underneath this outer ring of, if you don't recognize these are catwalk plates that are tacked down. And the reason I did that is the grid inside of that, which now is an 8 by 8 grid, is the welders. Okay, and they're offset from one another, and this is just to cover them. So if you imagine, you could have something like on your base, whether it's a space station or a ground-based base, and you want to have a welding platform. Well, this is one of the ideas that you can use. It's covered. That's to say it has at least one layer of something on the top. You could actually do something different, such as actual block on their armor blocks, and have the welders down one. Now, keeping in mind the vanilla welders have about a 2-block radius, okay, which means they're not going to be able to reach just 2 meters on the other side of that block if you put armor on there. That's exactly why I chose to use the plates, because I could actually have this projection really down low, and I'm still within that first block of as far as being close to this thing. Now, if I wanted to change things a little bit, which we could do, and what I'll probably do is do a couple tests here as we go. One of the things we could do is actually have the projector sitting here on its block, which would then put this whole unit down a little closer. So if you wanted to use a vanilla welder, then you may actually have a bit more luck. Are we outside of our 5-block radius? If you consider how big big blocks are, the big blocks are 5 blocks, 5 little blocks. Okay, so I should be where this thing is right now, still above, which is to say inside of that 5-block welding radius. But we're going to discover that, so we may have to change this and change the orientation slightly of our projection. Alright, so what do I want to do here? What I want to do is groups over here on the left hand column. The only group I have is the welders right now, and I'm going to stick this into the number 4 slot, toggle block on and off. Okay, so why do I want to do this? I want to be able to turn, okay, what did I just do? God mode. The reason I turned God mode on is because I am less than 2 blocks. Oh, nice. I am less than 2 blocks away from the welders. Okay. Just like a grinder will kill you, just like a drill will kill you, just like a welder will kill you, these are no different. These are welders. Okay, if you get within that radius, they will kill you. Okay, so God mode is just going to hopefully prevent that, because this is a tutorial. Okay, we're not purely in a survival mode, even though, as you can see by my hydrogen and oxygen and energy there, I am in survival mode. We're building in Space Master, so we're still able to build everything. So let's just for SNGs see what happens here when we turn the welder on. So we've got our projector on, we have our blueprint out here, we have 2 blocks that can at this moment be welded. So let's see what happens. So point at the button and press T, and we see done just that fast. All right, let's go over here and turn the welders off. And what I'm going to do is peer under here, and it's kind of hard to see, but yes, they're off. Okay, so just like the regular welders, if you look where the reticle is, so right below the reticle there's that little black kind of bar. Okay, that will be red if the welders are on. And let me demonstrate that for you. So we're behind the welder here, it shouldn't be a big deal. So welders, okay, why did all of these all of a sudden show up? There's actually a reason for that, and we'll discuss that in just a second. So first things first, let me demonstrate this, and then we'll get back to that discussion. Alright, so welders are on. Alright, so if you remember, we talked about the black bar. Alright, so just like the regular welders, you see that black bar just turned red. Red means danger. Red means it's on. Alright? Okay, welders and off. Okay, why did these all show up? All of these are now connected because the ship now exists. Okay, these were all the groups that existed on our actual welding drone. Alright, so what do we need to do to cut this guy loose and turn it into a real drone? Okay, one of the things you see, so the camera's on. Why is the camera on? And what's going on with these red things? Well, one of the things about a projector, now this is not true in creative mode, but in survival mode, all it will do is weld the blocks, just the blocks. So any containers there might have been, whether that be a reactor, a gas generator, whatever, a container will weld up and be empty. Okay, you remember that when we saved this blueprint, which is available on the workshop, on the Steam workshop, we had stuff in it. We actually put materials. We put uranium into the into the reactors. We put ice into the gas generator. So what's going on here? Well, everything is empty. Okay. Now, normally the batteries should be something. So let's see what's going on with the batteries. They're set to recharge and be semi-auto. Okay. So let's just for fun. So show block and terminal, we're going to turn that on. Escape, K to get back in, because what I want to do is actually see these batteries. Okay, so the batteries are charging right now, stored power kilowatts, so we're a quarter, well, a fifth of the way there. Okay, so if I were to set these as discharge, then we would actually have a little bit of power in these things. Okay, but what we don't have is any kind of energy other than what it's pulling off the station right now. So these are charging by virtue of being connected up to the station. The other downside that we have here, so you see batteries, and we'll select these, which is now going to be off. Okay, so show block and terminal off to get rid of those. This is the connector on the back, which I could have renamed, and oops, I forgot. 0. Why is it 0? Well, remember, a tank is a container, right? But because we just built this, we're in survival mode, it's empty. Okay? If we go down here and look at our oxygen generator, right? Okay, oxygen generator, let's go to inventory, look at our oxygen generator, and it's empty. Okay, so we're going to have to do some shuttling back and forth to get some materials in here. Alright, so how are we going to do that? Well, believe it or not, you can't actually get to connectors even when they're connected. So inventory, what am I looking for? And I may not actually have any. Let's do hide all my welders. Okay, so I do have uranium. So let's take 6,000 uranium. I do not appear to have any ice. Okay, so because this is a tutorial, we're going to go ahead and cheat a little bit. So, okay, not sure why that didn't work. Excuse me. The spawn menu. We're going to go down here and get some ice. Probably in the eyes somewhere. There it is. And we're going to spawn 10,000 of those. Why 10,000? Well, 10,000 is a nice round number. There it is. T to pick up. So, here's going to be the challenge. Now, it's not really a challenge, but if you were to disconnect this while this thing is still charging, you would have no power. So you would have no ability to actually move any of the materials in and out of this thing, which would be a problem. So, don't disconnect until you get stuff in here, because remember, a conveyor system, regardless of whether it's conveyors or blocks that you're going through, like in this case the hydrogen tank, the oxygen generator, which is just to the left there of the hydrogen tank, and then there's a conveyor set up there with those 6 reactors, remember, just like we built in the other video. So K to get me in, we're just using that port as a control panel. I should have gone into inventory, sorry. Oxygen generator, which we can see right here. It may or may not be able to hold all that. It did not hold all that, but you notice that it instantly lit off all of the thrusters. Okay, so that started generating. If we go into K again and we do hydrogen tank, you can see we are now generating hydrogen. Alright, let's focus. We'll go back to inventory. We're going to focus on reactors, and I'm going to put 1,000. Probably won't let me do that. Yep, it will. Okay, so 1,000 is 52, which is good. Okay, so normally what I do is 1,000, do a shift home and then a control C, which will, so I just copied the number 1,000. Why are we doing this? Well, let's demonstrate. So right click, drag to, in this case, reactor 3, and right click will bring up this amount window. You notice that the 4,000, which is how many we have here, so this is my inventory, this is how many we have, shows up here. It's already highlighted. That's really, really nice, because when I do a control V, I'm going to paste in that 1,000, and when I press return, which is the same as confirm, then boom, we just put 1,000 into that. Okay, so reactor 4, right click, drag, Control V, enter. Okay, we got 2 more reactors here before we're all full. Right click, drag and drop, Control V, enter. And then this last one we can left click and drag because we only have 1,000 left. Alright. So we have now powered all of our reactors, and we have also, so I'm going to go ahead and delete what we've got in the search bar there. So this is down quite a bit. I'm going to dump this in on top. We're going to go back to control panel here, and my tank is at 28%, not too bad, but I'm running out of hydrogen, or rather ice, very, very quickly. So we back off here, so you notice all of the thrusters are active. We're going to go back over here, shift F10, which gets us back into the spawn. We're going to do this again just to fill this up. Alright, inventory. So we're going to go down here. We're going to fill up our generator, which isn't too bad. Can we fit all of this into the connector? Yes, we can. So why is this important? Because as our generator goes down, it's going to continue pulling in ice if it can find it. In this case, it can find it, so it's going to pull that in. So we should need basically 3 evolutions of ice to fill this thing back up. So once again, shift F10, spawn, bring that in. We're going to store it again. So 46%. We go to the ice generator first. Put whatever's left in there, and we have drills, and we're going to put the rest in the drill just because. Alright, so what can we do at this point? What we're going to do is disconnect the ship and see what happens. How do we do that? So we talked about this block. So this block is the connector between the projector and the ship. Remember, these 2 thrusters were the first ones to show up. So, light armor block. Oh, and I have no energy. There we go. My welders are on. They have to be on. They're not on. So I'm not sure why that one did not back off any. Alright, so the last thing that we're going to do, because creating ships stations from blueprints, because they're really connected onto another station. They're connected to something. So whatever your name is for that particular thing, when you separate it, it comes up with basically a random name. Small grid, blah. In this case, you can see up there in the top left corner, small grid 9102. That's probably not what we want this to be named. So we're going to go here, click on info. You're going to see all the different info about this block, about this grid. So 127. You remember we saw 127 when we had the projector turned on, right? So 127. We actually have no armor blocks, so this is somewhat useful information. Conveyors. Do we really have 108 conveyors? Didn't think so. And the numbers don't quite line up because 108 plus 44 plus 4. Let's add that up. So 4 into the 0 slot is 148 plus 4 is 152, plus 4 is 156. Okay, so if I have a total of 127 blocks, then probably not 156. Alright, so I think this number is wrong. Now, why is it wrong? I have no idea. But clearly, if there's 127 blocks, then. Or is this number wrong? Don't know. Hard to say. Alright, down here. Ship name. So, if you remember, this was KTC for Kenty Tiger Clan. And this is a drone miner. A drying miner, even. How about a drone? Let's put an O in there. And then click the OK button. And once we go out and back in, you're going to notice that this changes. Alright? So let's go to Control Panel. We can see that we're almost filled up on hydrogen. Thankfully, the oxygen generator does pretty well. You notice that we are disconnected. We are no longer showing anything else that was connected here. So no welders. We don't have a welder group anymore. And we don't have a projector. Don't have anything. Okay? So now it's just the ship. Alright, so we went out. We come back in. And what do we see up here in the top corner? Drone miner. Alright? So in this case, because I'm connected onto it, I'm going to do the control. That's a control button where the highlight is. So let me roll that up. Control. Okay. So I'm going to take control of this. If I press W, it's going to go forward. Right? If I press A, it's going to fire the thrusters on the port side. Oh, sorry. On the starboard side. I'm going to move to the port. Alright, so this is a fully functional ship now. We have drills, so we can turn our drills on. Remember, we have populated our toolbars on the remote control. We're in the remote control here because there is no way to control this otherwise. So, 1 turns on and off our drills, so there's on, off. 2 turns on our spotlights. There we go. And off again. If we go 3, then we're going to view through the forward camera. And remember, one of the little quirky things here is if you do T, which normally, so 4. So press T to exit camera view, right? But the problem is we not only exit the camera view, we exit out of the remote control. Bang. So we're back to being non-controlling. Alright, so it's all built, it's all fueled and ready to go once again. So, what are we going to do here? So, this has some power in it. So, let's go into inventory just because we're going to take all of this out of here. Why am I doing that? Well, we're going to do just a tiny bit more testing. Alright, so what do we notice here? Well, all the reactors went red. The batteries, unfortunately, were in charge mode, remember? So when the hydrogen tank lost power, it is no longer supplying power to anything. Okay, so everything died. And that's okay, because we're going to do a Control Z and get rid of this thing because I want to try again on our projector. Oh, okay. Not sure why that one clicked off, but okay. Connector lock. So we're going to do a K once again, projector. We're going to turn it off and then back on, and it's not doing anything. So for some reason it lost the projection. So we're going to, alright, let's back up so we can demonstrate what I'm doing here. So K, which gets me into the control panel, we select our projector. Okay, we can look here. So my settings are still there. So why this is actually not doing anything? Keep projection, perhaps. So only buildable. Nope, not gonna let me do it. So there's 3 bars: custom data, blueprints, and remove. Okay, so in this case, we actually want blueprints. It's going to bring up the same thing as if you pressed F10, but it's not really the F10. So, okay, drone miner, because we've seen that before. We used it already. And okay. So let's see what this is doing. And what do we have here? Well, it did indeed keep our settings. So it's rotated all the right way. Now if you look at the projection here, you see that this projection is actually indicative of the blueprint. So if you were to build this in creative mode, the tank would be full, the batteries would have 3/4 of charge, and all of the reactors would actually have uranium in them. But because we're building this in survival mode, it does not put any materials in anything. Everything is empty. Alright, so lesson to learn here, we have to connect this on. Okay, so we have to have some methodology here which you can grind down and break it free without destroying your projector or parts of your ship that you need. So you see our projector, it's all light blocks, no dark blocks. Nothing here is weldable. In fact, to demonstrate that, let's go back in here, select our projector, and what is it going to say? What do you think it's going to say? Projection out of bounds. Why is it saying projection out of bounds? Because there's nothing on the actual blueprint that's touching our projector, which is really to say touching something that's touching our projector. That's the more accurate way of stating it. Because, take a look at your screen here, remember this warning, projection out of bounds. Keep that in the forefront of your mind. We are going to go over here. We're going to select number 1, which is my block. So light armor block there. We're going to put that right here on the front of the projector. Watch what happens. Strangely enough, absolutely nothing happened. Should have happened, but didn't happen. But you saw it happen the first time. Alright, let's see if we can make this thing behave. So let's go ahead and turn it off and turn it back on, and you notice our warning went away. Why did our warning go away? Couldn't begin to tell you, other than that block is there. Why was that block not behaving as it should have? Don't know. Can't explain. If you're a beginning space engineer, there are some interesting things that happen in this game. Has it come a long ways? Yes, absolutely. Does it have a bit of a journey to go? Yes, absolutely. That's why it's in beta and not in release. So, why did it do what it did? Don't know. But as we can see, the block here is welded, the block that we just put in there, and all of a sudden we have these 2 dark blocks, which means those are the first 2 blocks that are going to be welded. So let's, for sake of demonstration here, if you did not have welders, which is to say a platform-based welder, what could you do? Well, you pull out your welder here, and you can actually go to this block, and so I want to weld this block, right? So what is this screen telling me? So this is a hydrogen thruster. It's 1% complete, and it says you need steel plates. So I would have to literally get steel plates into my inventory, construction components, metal grids, large steel tubes, more construction components. So we need 4 items to do the welding. So let's go ahead and grab those 4 items. And I'm going to grab those 4 items by virtue of, I'm going to shut this off. I'm going to go to 2 because I know I have my button bar here, my toolbar. I'm going to go down to my my cargo container. Oh. Alright, that is just annoying as shit. Alright, so the inventory thing was supposed to work there and clearly didn't. So maybe that's just the indication to end the video here. So we ended with a bang, huh? Pun intended. So I will not bore you with the cleanup here. So I think we're gonna again end it there. No better place to end than with Clang at full bells. So this is Kenty Tiger signing off, and we will see you next time.